Hey everybody, it's Shawn, Bulle the kid. It's early morning. Got a mountain lion outside, and my cat really wants to come in because he doesn't like the mountain lion, but I wanted them to get some time together. Don't worry, my cat's in a enclosure out there. I'll let him in a bit. Otherwise, he'd be all over the place in here. And the mountain lions, game and fish department, they catch them and they put collars on them so they look like giant pets. But they're not. Anyway, this morning I'm going to do a video on something quite different. I had a childhood friend in Silver City, one of my two best friends, Peter and Mauro. Uh, Mauro was living in New York City in 2004. He was a teacher in the Bronx. He wanted a little bit of life experience away from New Mexico and Wyoming. So he went out there and taught math and science. And during that time, he did an interview for a TV show on a national network. And this interview was actually about me. And so I was going through some really old tapes. I mean, if you call 2004 old, I was going through tapes and transferring stuff to digital. And I ran across his raw interview tape. And I watched it last night, and it kind of made me emotional. But this is Mauro describing me in the early years in school, when we were kids, and probably a little after. He described how I was, and I had forgotten how hyper I must have been for these guys, but that's how I was. I was always going. So anyway, I hope any of you guys want to watch this. I hope you get something out of it. It tells you a little bit more about me in the early years, and I'll see you right after he gets done. So this is about 12 minutes.
My name is Mauro Diaz, and I live in New York City, and I'm a teacher in the South Bronx. I'm a teacher math and science. One thing about Shawn also is that he was interested in history, and he was interested in a lot of subjects, basically a lot of subjects. But Shawn was different, though. He was interested in history and the actual making of history, the doing of history, and actually going and seeing the sites. And he had a metal detector, and so you would go out to these old gold mines and basically ghost towns, and we'd go take his metal detector and just go all over the place. We'd go down into the old mine shafts, which was very dangerous, and I mean it's not something that I would have thought of doing. So he was a history buff, but in not sit around reading about it, but just actually doing it, being out there. And he would take you out there. He'd run around this whole place and tell you where all these old foundations. And I mean, I was interested in history, but I was more of a textbook history person. And so I could really, a lot of times I could care less, but it was fun. We hiked and went into mine shafts, and just a lot of just dangerous stuff that you would never do on your own. And that's kind of what Shawn was about. He was about being active, being out there, doing things. He didn't. He never sat around. He never was a person to sit around. He was just active. He'd always sought out people. He sought out some of the old timers, and he'd go ask them questions about this, that, or other. And we'd find, because there was a lot of legends and stories about the area and where we grew up in Silver City, New Mexico. And he sought out people. He wanted the oral history. He didn't really want to spend the time reading about it. And he searched old people, and we'd go visit these old peoples, and they'd tell us about these old diggings, lost mines, and then as soon as we'd hear from them, we'd go look for them. And so it was always an adventure. So knowing Shawn has always been an adventure. And one thing about Shawn is he's kind of salt of the earth kind of guy. He's one of us, and he's always been that way. he never has had any pretensions about anything. He's always just been out, just sort of out with everyone else, and learning about history and learning about his environment. Oh wow. So anyway, I was telling you about the time that we would go out to the Floridas, and it was sort of a desert-like mountain range out by Deming, New Mexico, and we'd go hiking out there, and sure enough, Shawn would always, he wasn't about staying on the trail. He'd sort of get off of it, and go run around, get on this rock, and kind of look at me or whatever, and he'd get on these rocks, and then he would kind of jump from rock to rock, and meet us places. And so there's one time when he got on a rock, and it was all kind of shale out there. So he got on a big rock. The rock underneath it sort of started sliding from underneath the rock, and so he looked like he was kind of on a big surfboard, and he started sliding down the hill. And and our friend Peter and I, we would just laughing, we'd laugh, and he just he just didn't think it was very funny, because I think he's sort of seeing the end of his life. But it was a lot of fun, and it was fun teasing him about it, but he just wasn't really happy about it, because it was pretty dangerous, but it's funny. So Shawn went off to the Army, and he got married, and I'm sure he's going to tell you all about that whole episode of his life. But so I won't go into that. But one of the things is that we'd go, I think right before he got married, or maybe right after, before he got married, we went out to this camping trip to Sedona in Arizona, and I think he had planned to live in Prescott. So we'd gone out there. He was showing us around, and Peter and I, another friend of his, and we went out there, and we were checking it out. So we camped out in Sedona. And one thing about Shawn is that he wasn't about camping and just sort of hanging out at the campsite, but actually going out and doing things. And so 6 o'clock would come around. My friend Peter and I would be we'd be sleeping. Sure enough, Shawn would be up, bugging us about getting up, and his whole personality was, if you're not up, okay, well, he would just basically take down the tent, and he'd take down the tent while you're still sleeping in it. So that's what he was. He was about getting up, doing stuff, and so he didn't have any patience for us, and we didn't have a lot of patience for him. And so, which made out to be a sort of a fun, humorous, made fun of each other all the time as a good time. So, but he went into the Army. He came back, got married, and did all that. He moved to Wyoming with his father, or to work with his father. I later on moved out to Wyoming, and that's kind of where our friendship really became solid, where we really became, where we began to understand each other, and really feel comfortable around each other, and really see each other for who we were, and it was awesome. We went on a lot of camping trips, did a lot of stuff. Another thing about Shawn that I was thinking about is that he's kind of always been a person that always he was always making things, always doing things, and he never is not a guy that goes out and buys things. He like, one thing I can think of is when he was living in Laramie, he bought a house out in Laramie, and he built a tree house for his son Shawnee. And the treehouse, it wasn't just like when he told me about it at work, he was telling me, oh yeah, I'm doing this treehouse thing, and we bought the lumber and all this stuff, and so I thought it was just going to be some sort of shack frame thing that he would put together. But sure enough, when I went to go look at it, it was amazing. It was a maze. It had all kinds of stuff. It was built around the tree, and it was cool. I mean, it was actually pretty cool, and it had rooms, it had everything, ways to get out, and I think even had a slide or something. I don't remember, or some stairs or something to it. But anyway, that's what Shawn is. He doesn't go out and buy things. He just makes it himself, and he puts it together, and does a good job of it too. And so it's always been with everything. When we go camping, he never settled for where you just drive up and then take your equipment out and we'd drive for hours, just driving through the mountains and driving through, and there's no trails. You just driving and driving and through logs and everything, just for that perfect camping site. And so, and then when you'd get there, it wasn't, it wasn't just enough now to unpack, but it was setting up. It was getting the perfect place. Even if we were just staying for 2 nights or whatever it was, he just like, he'd start just making the place like if we were gonna live there for the rest of our lives or something. So he's always building things, always trying to make things better, make it convenient. That's the way he was, and he's always been that way with everything. Just you don't, like when you're with Shawn, it's never gonna be where that's good enough, because it's never good enough. He's always trying to make things better. Just with everything, with his house, he's always. I remember when Peter and I went to visit him in Laramie one time. He'd build his own office and kind of sort of like a little gym thing with a punching bag, and just was always building things, and he doesn't settle for or buying a house in sort of like in the suburbs kind of thing. He's not like that, and I think it would drive his neighbors crazy and drive him crazy, because I think he's just not. He's the kind of guy that likes to go out and and add this to the house, do this, and he likes to do it on his own. And I think the reason is because he has a lot of confidence in himself. He has a lot of confidence that he can whatever he thinks up, he's going to definitely do, and he'll get it done. He's definitely in sort of in kind of has a lot of confidence, and I think a lot of spills out a lot with his friends and people around him. He's always he gets people to see it his way, a lot of ways also, and which is pretty unique. Because a lot of times, with guys like Shawn, they tend to seem kind of like outsiders, but because of who they are or how they are. But Shawn's never been that way. He's if he's been new to a place, he always finds a place in the town or in the community. He always finds a place for himself and grows. And that's one thing about Shawn too, is that he's never stagnant. He's always growing, and I'm not just saying physically, but I'm talking about mentally and spiritually. He's always he's had some struggles, or he had some things that happened to him in his life, but he doesn't quit. He doesn't sort of sit back and say, oh well, these things happened to me, so my life sucks. It's not about that. He's never sat around but he's just he gets over the hurdles. He gets over them, and he moves on. He just keeps going and just keeps going. And once in a while he'll reflect on it, but it's like it's healthy. It's a healthy way of looking at the world and looking at himself and himself in the world. He's never let someone say, this is, you should do this, or this is, your life is good, leave it as it is. He's always looking for something new, a new adventure. He's always, and not just going to a new adventure, but also making it everywhere he goes and trying to make it, and just keep going. And I have no doubts that Prescott Valley is his last stop. I think he has a lot more life to live, and even though he has 4 children, I think now, and so I think he's still going at it. He's still going, and he's going strong, and he'll never quit. One thing that just thinking about this country, or thinking and patriotism and all that stuff, I see sort of Shawn, I guess. I sort of see Shawn in sort of the same light as some of the early colonists, where they're scrappers. They were out here to make a new life, and they were definitely they were organized, and they were definitely making a huge effort to make it here. And I think it's funny, because I was thinking about that the other day, or just yesterday, how Shawn has always been sort of a scrapper. He doesn't let things get him down, and so there's a parallel between the early colonists and the way they lived and the way they fought. And so I think Shawn definitely would have fit in very well with early colonists, and with sort of Paul Revere kind of guy, and just basically involved with what's going around him, Shawn's not a guy that lets sort of lets things. How do I say this? It doesn't. He's not a guy that. Shawn's not a guy that lets his environment sort of mold him. He's the one that sort of molds things around him. He creates situations. He creates environments for himself. He creates opportunities. He's not a guy that just sort of waits around for something to happen. He's making things happen, and for better or worse, it's always he's out doing it, and so sometimes maybe things don't turn out as best as he thought, but he makes the best of the situation, and then he moves on and makes it better. And that's, he never quits. He just makes it better, and so it's definitely a good quality. And
Well, I hope that was semi-informative. That was my friend Mauro. When I was growing up in Silver City, I had two friends, Peter and Mauro, and Mauro and I actually spent a huge amount of time together in Wyoming. When I moved up there, he moved up there, and then we both ended up marrying Wyoming girls, and I had 4 kids, and he had 3. And I would say it was about 2 years ago now that my friend Peter, he called one day randomly and couldn't hardly get the words out, but he let me know that Mauro was killed alongside his youngest boy in an automobile accident. They were dropping their one son off for, I think it was a track meet, and they were heading back on a 2-lane road, and this old guy, I think he was from Texas, he just was passing everybody on a 2-lane and hit them head on. And so Peter and I, being Mauro's 2 best friends growing up, we went up to his funeral, and Peter is a musician. He's been a musician ever since I can remember. And Peter played the ukulele, played that later version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I spoke at Mauro's funeral. And that definitely wasn't easy, losing your friend, especially when you just got done talking to him on the phone, and we'd always catch up about what's going on with our families, and we'd talk about the old times in Silver City, and we laugh about some of the weird stuff and some of the weird people we knew. But Mauro told me, he said, no matter where I go in this world, every time I talk to you, I get a feeling and a sense of home again. He thought I helped give him like grounding and remember who he is. So anyway, I'm gonna really miss Mauro. I spent so much time with him. Him and I used to go fly fishing after work up in Laramie, Wyoming. We'd go up in the mountains by Centennial, and it was really fun. He was an awesome guy to know, and I consider him a best friend. And now he's gone, and what can you do? So anyway, rest in peace, Mauro, and thank you guys for watching.
Bulle, the Kid.